Hi, it's Peter Francis from the reward team in Frazer Jones in London. I'm joined with my colleague Liza, who's come over from our Amsterdam office, and we thought it'd be a good idea just to talk through all things that's sort of trend-wise that's happening across us, both in the UK reward space as well as what's impacting the EU reward space. So Liza, what trends are you seeing in the EU reward space at the moment?
Lots of exciting things. It's been a very interesting year. Lots of changes from Q1 going into Q3 now. I think the first major thing that we've seen is, of course, pay transparency. Yeah. That's been top of the docket for all rewards leaders, anyone within HR really. And with that, of course, we're seeing that impact hiring, and we're seeing that impacting the kinds of skills that organizations are looking for when hiring in the reward function.
We've helped a number of organizations sort of ramp up their ability to start the whole reporting regime as they fall in scope for the CSRD regs and just the general pay transparency regs. So I think it's really shining a bit of a light on organizations becoming a lot more evidence-based in their reporting and their metrics and how they go about capturing and storing that data, and obviously socializing that data internally within their organization as well as to the external sort of regulatory bodies that they're going to potentially fall in scope for. So it's certainly something that looks like it's a permanent direction of travel.
It is, and I think what we're seeing primarily is we're still in the preparation phase in Europe. So of course the directive is in 2026, so we're still building up. We had actually a round table with lots of European reward leaders recently, and the main theme there was everyone feels prepared, but at the same time, we don't really know what perfect looks like just yet. Different ways of interpreting the way the directive is kind of listed. And because of that, there's a lot of hiring on the data side, right? Getting people who understand people analytics, but not just from a tech perspective, but from a strategic perspective as well, and embedding that to ensure that that's completely covered before the directive is officially a go.
Yeah, and I think, once organizations do it the first time, they'll then know where their weak points are or where the gaps are in their processes and or their workforce stack. So then when it comes to the second iteration of that reporting, they'll be a better place. And it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. And once you become aware of that absence of data or absence of process, you can then look to fill that for the next time round and be a bit more efficient and effective at it. And I think obviously we're going to see more of that because obviously 2026 is when the small and the mid-cap companies fall in scope for CSRD, so their first reporting cycle is going to be 2027. So I think what we potentially could see now is businesses who will be in scope for the 2026 regs change is to then start looking at their own architecture and their own sort of data points and metrics, and just to see sort of what their own sort of fitness test is. And so that we may see more demand from clients coming out to people like ourselves saying, we could really do with somebody to come in and give our architecture a health check in readiness for their first CSRD reporting cycle.
Absolutely, seeing something very similar in Europe. And just out of curiosity in the UK, what are you seeing in terms of specific hiring needs, in terms of positions and titles? What is coming up as a priority for businesses?
There haven't been any, again, sort of key standouds. Last year we helped out a number of clients who could see that there was a deficit in their architecture in terms of, the evidence and the sort of the clarity that they had. We haven't seen any more sort of spikes of hiring in those particular pockets this year. Generally, there's a sort of a consciousness amongst our clients where they're becoming a lot more data fluent. They're sort of embracing that whole, qualitative approach to their reporting and their understanding. So it's becoming a lot more factual and evidence-based, which obviously chimes, well with the direction of travel that we're seeing across the sort of both globally and the regional regulatory landscape. There's definitely a trend towards transparency. There's a trend towards greater levels of reporting. And all of that is going to fall down into the reward teams that are sort of on the ground capturing and managing that data, and all the flows up and down across the organisation and out to the reporting bodies. I think we're moving into more of a sort of a scientific phase in reward. I think there's certainly a greater incentive and onus on data.
Yeah, and we've been seeing as well a lot of talk of automation and AI and how to integrate that, and again, not just putting that into the super technical roles, but then integrating that across all of HR, which of course is very much led by reward when it comes to European businesses, especially in the Netherlands, are looking at their operating models and how do they work as a rewards function trying to become more agile, more automated, using the strategic lens, but also just getting more boots on the ground to be able to really get all of the deliverables that they have done. So we've seen from Q1 really to Q3, we saw a big shift in the hires coming more into individual contributors and specialists and analysts who can really come in and take charge of projects and just fully own that. Which is a little bit different than Q4 of last year, where we were seeing a lot more strategic hiring in terms of the skill sets that they had.
Yeah, and I think, it's definitely going to be an onward trend towards that systemization and automation of data sets. And a lot of the sort of the manual work that reward teams used to do is now going to be absorbed through technology platforms. One of the sort of key breakpoints in that or weakness points is if you've got data gaps, then you can't automate. Your automation is only as good as the sort of the wholesomeness of your data, and the veracity of that data. I think, there will be some organizations that want to have that automation endpoint, but they have a consciousness that they're not healthy yet from a sort of a data vitality perspective, and they've got to put people in to capture all that data, harmonize and, evidence all their bands and their levels and their layers. So when you then come to an automation product, you're actually starting from a good place in terms of your data health.